Model hailing back from the days of Medarot 8 and more unique takes on designs. It is the pink-colored parakeet type, MMC00 Wheel Comb, with the kit of Discharge, double mirror guard, light legs, and the leg ability of Adapter, which changes all terrain matches to A rank that are not already A rank or better at even S rank. Now, as a model available in Medarot S's permanent banner, Wheelcomb is one of those models you may or may not see more often than some, and even if it has a very unique design, very cute design no less, its viability on the field may be somewhat niche depending on how you choose to use her. Head of Discharge, and the only combat skill on her kit is a melee skill that, upon attacking a target, will steal a small amount from their Metaforce gauge and effectively, well, discharge it. It will not go to her own gauge like Charge Drain might. It essentially will take a portion of their Metaforce gauge and poof, gone. This will be very handy for stalling anyone that likes to use Metaforce-reliant tactics or Metaforce spam, such as with Full Charge or something of the like for that 2-turn Metaforce nuke. This is a very good way to stall them, as they won't be able to unleash what they don't have 100% of. Or, in some cases, if you catch them quick enough, you could also even stall auto-charge legs by keeping their Metaforce gauge low to keep any damage bonuses or conditional bonuses off the table. Right and left arm of Mirror Guard are defense-based skills that will place Wheelcomb on the center line, and while she may intercept any and all incoming blows in particular, it does mean she has a particular specialty towards shooting attacks. Primarily, for any shooting attacks that she intercepts, she will capture and reflect back to sender at half of the intended damage. So while you may go in with that pesky little pea shooter rifle and not expect too much, aside from maybe a charge from the shield taken out, if you decide to go in with a nuke skill such as Hyper Beam or Ghost Shot or something similar, it is basically going to guarantee you are going to lose that arm. There's really no nice way of saying it. And this, even though this is a rather niche shield, it is certainly one of the more interesting ones with a very selective use that, if done correctly, can make it a very nasty and menacing deterrent to use in competitive meta. As expected of a female model, especially of a defender type like her, Wheelcomb is actually kind of light on the armor department, which is kind of par for the course, as I mentioned, with a head HP of about 3150, arms about 2650 each, and the legs at about 3050. Relatively light on the armor, which is rather interesting to say for a defender type like her, but she does actually have some pretty decent heat and cool stat on the arms at about low to mid 500s for her heat stat, so she will have a relatively solid time running to and from the line when resetting her shield. As a flight leg, Wheelcomb will have a very solid base high mobility and evade on top of that, and a base mobility at about 865 and an evade of 1801 are both really nice, as this means she not only will have a very solid time running to and fro the line before any bonuses, but she will also have an even easier time dodging or grazing a lot of attacks to keep her damage controlled. A melee resist of 912 and a shoot resist of 835 certainly aren't super great, but I am willing to forgive it in her case, primarily for the reason that she has Adapter as a leg ability. And the reason why I'm forgiving it is because Adapter changes all leg masteries not at A rank or S rank into A rank. So that means you are able to use a flight leg model like this indoors, in stadium, or in a forest, and you're going to have a very solid coverage and terrain mastery. So even though the resist stats may be rather low to a point, just barely shy of a little over 800 or 900, once that 10% goes in, you can basically treat it like a float leg. The only thing you really have to exercise caution with is, of course, anyone using anti-air, because even though it may behave like a float leg, it's still considered a flight leg. That all being said, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Wheelcomb a pretty flat 4 out of 10. Not to say that she's bad or has very bad viability, she's just a very niche defender type model, primarily with an emphasis towards shooting type attackers. So if there are no shooting type attackers on the opposing team, most of the reason Wheelcomb would be there in the first place is effectively null and void. And even though Discharge might be very handy installing Metaforce-reliant tactics, given that it is a head use means she only has a limited number of charges before she runs out. As mixed parts, I very easily have to rate her a little higher at a 6 out of 10, given that even though double mirror guard, discharge, and flight legs with adapter by themselves may be rather niche, perhaps you could find some very solid versatility and viability in these mixed parts by changing them up. The flight legs are probably going to be the best and most useful part on her, given that they are flight legs with great mobility and evade, and even though the resist stats are low like I mentioned, the adapter leg ability does make it forgivable to a point. And Discharge may not be super useful compared to Charge Drain, which will give you back what you stole from their Metaforce gauge. It is still very good for Metaforce stalling all the same. And Mirror Guard probably wouldn't hurt to have one on hand ready to go and raised, just in case you may need it, and just in case you can't fit a more conventional shield into the mix.